On today's episode, we're going to be talking about marketing experiments and how to run them the most effective way possible. So we have Neil Patel from Neil Patel Digital, we have Eric Su from ClickFlow, and we have Pedro Clavati, who's the head of growth at Growth Hackers.
Ever wonder why some companies grow faster than others? What are they doing differently? And what are their secret ingredients? That's what this podcast is all about. Welcome to Boost Sauce.
And again, just so you guys know, this podcast is sponsored by Client Boost, which is our pay-per-click and conversion rate optimization agency, and Kite, which is our pay-per-click software. I hope you enjoy the show. All right, everybody, super excited to have you here. I got a big dog in the house from a marketing perspective, somebody who I looked up to for a very long time, Neil Patel. Thanks for being here.
No, thanks for having me. So appreciate it. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. Now, you guys, you and Eric Su have a podcast too that I've been listening to for a while. What's it called again?
Marketing School.
Marketing School. Yeah, you guys drop a ton of knowledge, a lot of tools that you guys talk about there too. It's doing really well. You guys been at it for a while.
Yeah, it's doing well. We've been at it for a few years now. So. Yeah. Just continue cranking away.
Awesome. Well, yeah, anybody who's listening to this podcast, check their podcast out. Lots of great value. Today, Neil, you and I are going to be talking about your marketing experiments, what you've learned from in the past, what you're doing today, and also some like the unexpected outcomes of that. So, like, where's the best place to start?
Wherever you want to end up starting. I've done so much. So,
all right. Well, let's start. Let's start in the past, man. Let's look back at some of the things that were really eye opening to you that you can remember. And like, how did you run that experiment? What were the outcomes and stuff like that? Anything that comes to mind right now?
Yeah. So there's a lot of simple ones. I'll start with the basics and then go from there. The simplest one that most people don't end up doing. Whatever lead forms you have, whatever checkout pages you have, I don't care if it's B2C or B2B, just turn it into 2 steps. I always see like a 9 to 11% increase in conversion.
Okay,
simple,
I like that.
Silly, it works. And if you're Amazon, you don't need to do it. But for the rest of the world, who's SMBs and we don't have as strong of a brand, 2-step works out really well.
Yeah.
Another one that's done extremely well for me is instead of making people register, they already have a Facebook email or a Google email. Just do sign-in authentication with like Google or Facebook. I'm usually seeing a 30 to 40% lift. I used to before see a 90+% lift, but now that people are doing it.
Yeah.
And instead of saying sign up, change a button to log in, you'll see usually another single-digit increase from changing the button to log in.
Nice. Those are some fast ones. I remember hearing about that authentication thing that you did too. I liked you talked about the 2-step. We call that the breadcrumb technique ourselves, where we ask for personal information on the last step, and then everything that's easier to fill out on the first step. Is that the same way you go about it, or do you have any idea of like the order of fields and forms?
I do. So the key with form fields is the easiest information first, the most customized personal, like phone number last, and you'll see the most versions that way. If you ask phone number first, you get screwed. For example, in my phone field, I try to ask for like name or URL first, even before I ask the email.
Good. I like that. That's super smart. What from like your own stuff that you guys are doing, because you now have an agency, you're doing a lot of things there too. Obviously, you're massive on the content side. I know that you bought like a keyword tool a while back too. I don't know if we can classify that as an experiment, but I think it was a brilliant idea. How did you go about thinking of that?
Yeah, I bought a keyword tool called Uber Suggest. And what I did was, as marketers, as SEOs, even me, we try to build all this content, build all these links. And I'm like, you know what? I know you're not supposed to buy links, but just think about how much energy you put into building links, how much time you put into writing content, how much energy you put into getting those rankings, and just see how much it would cost to buy a site that already has all of it and they don't generate any revenue. And I bet you it's cheaper.
I like that. I'm imagining that there's not a lot of those sites out there, but like it sounds like you got a good ROI from it so far.
I got amazing. Well, Technically not yet, but hopefully in another year or two.
Long term, cool. How do you just, so I don't know, like, what does your day to day involve? Like, what does it look like for you? Are you like the CMO, or what do you spend most of your time on today?
Generating leads and helping customers with strategy and making sure our customers are growing.
Okay, cool. Now, how do you prioritize when it comes to like generating leads for yourself?
So the way I prioritize is I used to believe in, and I still do, I used to prioritize through content marketing and CRO.
Okay.
And what I found is tools generate more traffic than content marketing.
Okay.
So I spend more time building up tools than generating content, because with content marketing, to generate a lot of traffic over years, what most people don't know is you have to continually update and rewrite your content. If you look at your content decay, you can use that like revive animals to see where your content's decaying. And what you want to do is rewrite and edit the ones that are dying down. But if you look at how much time you spend in that, it's cheaper to just build a tool.
Yeah. What I completely agree. We've started updating our old blog posts, things that have been like, 3+ years old, and we're seeing great results from it. From tools when it comes to getting leads at the end of the day, those free tools, like that's the main goal, right? Like, I guess with everything content, it's the same thing. At the end of the day, if it's not producing a business impact for you, you're not really keen on doing more of it. How do you decide on which tools to create? Let's say that you're, if you want to give me an example of an industry.
Great tool.
Sorry?
Go to, what is it called? Code Canyon.
Okay.
There's a tool on everything, and for like $10 to $20, you can buy a tool, and you'll find that it can generate a lot of traffic. Now, here's the trick. You go and you look at whatever's already popular in the tool space within your region.
Yeah.
And you can use, the similar webs of the world to see what's already driving traffic. Go find similar tools from there within your competitors, then you're off into the races.
This is freaking amazing. What are you working on like today? What's the biggest things in front of you?
Uber Suggest is one of the biggest things. My ad agency, Ep012 Digital, we spend a ton of time on that. But in general, it's just helping people grow and finding out more creative ways. So
yeah, for sure. What have there been experiments that you've run in the past or currently when you were like, this is going to take off, this is going to be awesome, and it was a complete dud? Like, did that ever happen?
Many times. So a good example of this is, I assume that if you go and update all your content, even if it decays, that you will get more traffic. Mm-hmm. And that was a wrong approach. What was easier for me to do is go and, you want to look at content that has decayed, but more importantly, you want to look at in Google Search Console or Webmaster Tools, whatever you want to end up calling it, the content that has a lot of impressions, low click-through rate. You ideally want to look for under 4% click-through rate. And then you want to look at the keywords that have under a 5% click-through rate. Take those keywords, because you can click on the page, right? Your overall page has under 4%. Mm-hmm. You want to look for the keywords that have under 5%. Once you click into the page level, see which ones that aren't mentioned in the article, add them. That's the first thing. That's a quick boost. Second thing is add those keywords to the title tag, meta description. Third thing that you want to end up doing is Googling those terms, see what everyone in the top 10 includes, and make sure that your content's more thorough than them. And that's the easier way to them.
Dang. So like, well, that we might have to start doing that. We have seen increases in traffic from just updating posts, but not gone to the detail of like actually solving the problem, like you just mentioned with the 3 steps. What anything else that comes to mind for you in regards to failed marketing experiments?
So one thing that I've learned from a failed marketing experiment is time changes what works. So for example, remember how I said that before I was getting, I used to get like 90+% increases in conversion from using with Google, etc. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, with privacy and data, not everyone wants to do that. Right. So I had one business that was the only option. We started adding in an email or like putting your name, email, password, or sign in with Google. Yeah. We saw increasing conversions. People want choices now because they're more sensitive about their data.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anything else? You mentioned Code Canyon and figuring out how to like get tools on like the lower end cost scale. What do you think in regards to things that are going to work in the future? Is it still going to be tools? Is it going to be other things that you see that are going to be valuable? What are your thoughts?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, right now you're mentioning that going to Code Canyon, potentially buying a tool that you can reskin for your own industry and your own value that you can bring. In the future, obviously tools will still be valuable, but is there anything else that you think that's happening that will be more valuable from a lead gen perspective for you?
From a lead generation, video is going to be huge. YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn video.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: just having a video, you're not going to get leads or sales from it. Within your videos, you got to talk about your product and service and where people can go to sign up. Works really well. And B, you can have, if you're using tools like Wistia, you can have a call to action at the end of videos that's clickable, where they can go back to your, whatever landing page you want, click the lead or purchase.
Yeah.
That works really well. Another tool that I've seen is you do a video on Wistia and you show them the first 30 seconds to a minute. If they want to watch more, they got to put in their information so you can collect the lead from that. It's a quick hack that works really well. And then the other thing that I love doing is live video crushes it. From not an engagement standpoint, but if you tell people to send somewhere, they tend to listen and they tend to convert. Just look at Ty Lopez. He does extremely well just from live video.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Well, anything else you want to cap off with? Otherwise, I have no more questions.
That's it on my end.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll bring you back another time and share some knowledge. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Neil. Bye. All right, everyone. I'm pumped. I've been respecting this guy from afar. It's actually rare that we get to meet in person, but we have met in person before. We have Eric Su, who is the owner of Single Grain and the CEO of ClickFlow. How are you, Eric?
I am doing well, man. Great to connect again.
Yeah. Thank you. And for people listening, he was saying that it was the best Caucasian pronunciation he's had of his last name. So I will take that and start off with the first nugget for the show. So we're gonna be talking about marketing experiments, and we also had Neil on the show in regards to his point of view. And I know you guys work pretty closely, so it's really, really fun dynamic to see what you put in the bucket of marketing experience and what he does too. So when your mindset, you have your own podcast, Marketing School, which is amazing. People listening here need to go subscribe. Cause I remember listening a while back and like you guys dropped like tons of tool knowledge. I remember maybe it was just a couple of episodes I listened to, but it was really, really rad. So I couldn't think of anybody better than you to have for this like segment in our episode. How do you go about your own marketing experiments and also those for your clients?
Yeah, super. Well, appreciate that. So I guess I can speak to the experiments that we've been running for ourselves. And what's interesting is Neil and I, we just had an event. I hate to call it a mastermind, but we had this event where
do you say Neil, that because like that's like the thing that marketers want to avoid, or
it's so internet marketing, man.
I
try to stay away from that. Yeah.
All right, we'll call it something else.
Yeah, but we call it the growth accelerator. But anyway, so Neil spoke and he went first and he dropped like 21 different tactics, right? Loaded it up. And then I went like the day after and I loaded up with different tactics. So it's very complementary. And I think one of the experiments that's been working really well for us right now is the use of customer data platforms. So have you had anybody talk about that on this podcast?
No, I don't even know where you're going with this. I'm excited.
Oh, okay, great. Dude, you could totally use this because you guys, anybody that's producing content right now and getting organic traffic, you have a lot of unknown IP addresses that are landing on your website. So a customer data platform, what we use is Hull.io, that's HULL.io.
Okay.
And we use that. Thank you for that. That's my first nugget. But we use that for it's our single source of truth, right? It combines data from Intercom, from HubSpot. It combines with our sales enablement tool, which is Outreach. It combines all the tools, right? Okay. Basically, it allows you to weaponize your data. So if I'm Coca-Cola and I visit your website and I have visited, let's say, your services page on, because you guys have like your PPC services as an example. If I can uncover 4 people from the Coca-Cola team, and because I know they visited that page, I can drop them into a sequence inside of Outreach, which is sales enablement, and it happens automatically, right?
Yeah.
And so from there, like it takes away the need to have to constantly have a salesperson on it, right? It's basically automated sales. That's one aspect that you can do with a customer data platform. That's one thing. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to follow up with me?
Well, let's slow down a bit, because I just like got super tingly and excited. It's like, I don't know if you get this feeling, but like when you listen to really cool music, you'll get like goosebumps. You literally just gave me goosebumps, like for what you just said, because let me unpack that slowly, really quick for everybody listening. So you're basically saying that Outreach.io is your sales enablement platform that actually has both like email sequences in it and also customer data. Like, so if it is Coca-Cola, you basically give it filter to say people from the marketing team at Coca-Cola, because you're guessing, right? You don't know the person that actually went on your site. You know the company that went on your site. Is that correct?
That's correct. Okay. And what I do to make that a little easier, the customer data platform whole.io or anything, there's a bunch of different tools, but you can set filters. You can say, I'm only going to reach out. This rule will only be triggered if 2 unique IP addresses from Coca-Cola visit our website. So you're not going to just do it for every single person. Does that make sense?
It does. And so can you set filters around like the amount of visits in within a certain time frame, or like them hitting like a certain page because that shows higher intent? Like those can be triggers as well?
Yeah, so you can set up different segments. So, for example, we rank for a lot of different terms, right? So, let's say you guys rank for, I don't know, podcast advertising or something, and you guys sell podcast advertising. Very high intent, makes sense, right? And you could just say, hey, Jonathan, I noticed you visit our page on podcast advertising. Would you like to have a chat with us? Because we actually have this report on podcast advertising trends. Yeah. It'll take 5 to 10 minutes, and we just want to show it to you. Is that cool?
Yeah.
But yeah, something like that.
All right. Wow. So I'm just thinking. So we use Clearbit, we use Proof, we use Segment, and I'm thinking like there's a lot of similarities, but we still do parts of this manually, and so. I'm pumped. I just want to end this conversation right now and just go start working on this. Let's go to the next thing. This
there's more you can do with it. Do you want me to give you?
Yeah.
Do you want me to give you more that you can do with it?
Yes.
Okay. So so Segment is actually something they're kind of going down that route too. So you might want to talk to their sales team to see if you can go a little deeper.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, they'll combine with Clearbit and all these other integrations. So what you can also do is, again, let's go back to the Coca-Cola example. Yeah. You do not know who visited, but you've uncovered 4 VP of marketing from their team. You can actually do a form of dynamic retargeting based on those IP addresses, right? You can say, hey, we help companies like Coca-Cola. Obviously this has to be, above water with ad policies. Yeah. But anyway, so you can retarget based and make it, customized towards them. And you can do that automatically, right? So you can, upload automatically to Facebook. That's one additional thing that you can do with CDPs.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, you talked about Proof, and, love Dave and
rad people over there.
Love what they're doing with personalization. But also, guess what? Whole.io allows you to do personalization as well.
Okay.
So, that's another thing. There's just a lot of flexibility you get because, it's like looking at a Facebook feed, but it's looking at all these people that are opting into your list. So let's say someone opts into your list, you can actually look at every single action they perform. Like they engage with you on Intercom, then they did something on your sales page, and then then they visit another page and they opted in for a resource. It's all combined into one source, so you have like a timeline you can look at without having to log into disparate sources.
That's amazing. That's so cool. So yeah, anybody listening that does anything B2B related, you just got an early Christmas present. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What what other things do you have in that amazing mind of yours?
Well, thank you for that. But let's see what else we got going on. So what I think, and I'm glad that you guys are doing a podcast, because using Whole.io, by the way, we signed almost a 7-figure deal just because that initiation happened through our sales enablement tool to get us a podcast advertising deal. But what I recommend for people is, and you guys might be doing this already, but I think most people that are producing content, if you're really good at video, you automatically have audio files. So like this podcast can probably be chopped into 5 separate audio files. Yeah. And then from there, they can be published into like, a LinkedIn carousel or Instagram carousel, like a bunch of stories, right?
Yeah.
So, you're trying to, the whole thing now is like, people used to say in marketing, oh, it's the rule of 7. You have to see something 7 times. I actually think it's probably like the rule of like 20 or 30 now. People need to see you a lot more. Get what I mean?
It's crowded. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So we've been producing a lot more content. Like I've been just kind of testing this out in the last couple of weeks, where I'm like writing a tweet storm every day, and I just kind of repurpose it to LinkedIn and then the Facebook stories, Instagram stories, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a lot more engagement,
Yeah.
and that has actually led to a call with a really well-respected university later this week, and my team's going to take that call. But it literally happened because the guy DM'd me and said, we just started engaging a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think most people don't take advantage of those other social platforms because they don't post natively to those platforms, and
Right.
they don't make the most of the seed piece of content that they're producing. So I think you got to kind of, we call it content sprouting, where you take one piece and you make it into 30 or 40 pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I saw like the Gary Vaynerchuk like content distribution model. Is that something similar? Have you seen that or?
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, one of the guys that used to work with me, work for me as a copywriter.
Yeah.
He now works for Gary Vee, and he's always talking. I'm still texting with him all the time,
Yeah.
so I get the lowdown on kind of the inner workings there. But it is very much that.
That's so cool. Yeah. No, and I think, I can't even imagine. So like you have all these, let's say I call them like octopus arms of like content, and it's valuable content. Like you're coming out with really, really cool stuff. And then you also have the whole.io example of like, you had this like safety net that's catching a lot of things because that's just such a perfect machine that you guys are building right now. That's incredible.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
Cool. How do you guys go about deciding, and how do you prioritize these experiments? Is it more so, there's a new tool that allows us to do something that we weren't able to do before, now we're going to try it out? Or are there certain things that you're trying to crack the code on? Because it sounds like you guys are pretty solid, and I can see that from the outside too. You guys are, but what's like your biggest pain point from a marketing and maybe acquisition perspective right now?
I think there's always, so I guess in terms of how we run the experiment, I mean, we usually use the ICE framework, impact, confidence. I think it's EASE maybe. I forgot what the E was, but
and I only know that because I had somebody else tell me that on the other show. So now I'm an expert.
Nice. Well, there's that, right? And then Intercom came up with something called RICE. I think it was reach, and then it multiplies the other ones, and it's like it started to get all complicated. So what we basically do now is we just use we follow a book called The Entrepreneur's Operating System. The book's called Traction. Yeah. And we have a marketing meeting every single week on it. We have a leadership meeting, 90-minute marketing meeting. And, we brainstorm topics. We brainstorm kind of experiments. And then we kind of just choose from there. That's actually made life a lot easier and less stressful.
Do you guys have rocks as well?
We do. We have rocks, but we've kind of made it into a hybrid. So we've taken the OKR model from Measure What Matters, and we've kind of mixed it up a little bit.
Nice, do what works for you. That's awesome. We had Traction, then we had What the Heck is EOS, which is the Entrepreneur Operating System. Like, there's only really two books that we follow at this company. It is the What the Heck is EOS, which is like the simplified version, the
truncated version.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have the 1 Minute Manager, which is the other way that we kind of like operate based off servant leadership. So it's,
I love it, dude.
That's awesome. That's so funny that you guys do that
required
too.
reading.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So you guys do this brainstorm. In regards to that mastermind thing that you just had, which we won't call a mastermind, what were some of the things that you shared there that you're okay sharing with us maybe? Yeah.
So the other one is this. I mean, this all comes from my talk, but when I think about, going to that mastermind, I mean, the ticket was $25,000 to attend, right? So it's very high ticket and it's very high touch. So what was going on was, people would put in their phone number, and we would automatically text them, right? So you can use like Zapier or something. We use basically, once they put in their phone number, we'll hook it in using Zapier to Twilio, and it will automatically send them a text message saying, "Hey, yes, another one." But
by the way, you've gotten way more clucks that are silent that you've just been dropping in my head. So I haven't been like interrupting your speech pattern. So just know that you're like really further ahead than like the 7 you've gotten so far.
Yes. All right. Well, I appreciate that. So I only came on the show for the clucks, but we basically, what happens is we text them automatically, right? So we're like, "Hey, do you have any questions around the mastermind?" And I'm actually crowdfunding for ClickFlow right now, which is my software, and we raised a couple $100,000 already. Yeah. And same deal, right? Basically, they will put in their phone number, the email address, whatever, and then they'll get a text message saying, "Hey, do you have any questions regarding the investment? Do you have any questions regarding whatever it is, right?" Yeah. And usually the response rate, not the open rate, the response rate is 60%. So what we do there is we basically sync it up with, we use Front. That's kind of the email tool that we use.
Okay.
And we can message people back and forth as if we're texting them through Front, because it hooks in with the Twilio API.
Okay.
And it's a shared inbox system too, so we can have our salespeople jump on it too.
Yeah.
So it's all about messaging and interacting with people, and that's one aspect of it. And I can go a little further if you want.
Yeah, we got some time, and let's say we have like 5 more minutes, and we'll wrap it up. But yeah, anything you want. This is awesome.
Okay, yeah. So going a little deeper than that, I mean, maybe like 2 hours ago, I had the ManyChat founder, Mikhail Yang, for the second round of podcast interviews on the Leveling Up podcast, which is my other podcast.
Yeah.
But I was just getting more data from him. When I last spoke to him a couple years ago, he's like, yeah, we have about 1 million messages sent per day. Guess how many messages they have sent per day now that they're managing?
Like 10 million?
No, like 266 million per day. So 100 to 266.
See,
right?
Wow.
It's crazy. I think that's 8 billion a month. But key point here is, like Twilio as a company, their stock price continues to skyrocket, right?
Yeah.
SMS messaging, it's not going anywhere. So I look at ManyChat. They're not just a Facebook Messenger platform anymore, but they have SMS, they have email. So if you can somehow integrate SMS with Facebook Messenger, you can do really ninja stuff. And I'm glad I'm talking to you about this. I'm happy to share all this with you, because like I think you can do this. Not many other agencies can actually weaponize all the stuff that I'm talking about.
I appreciate
so from a B2B perspective, yeah, you're welcome. And from a Facebook Messenger standpoint, sure, you can use ManyChat. This works for B2C too. So it works for consumers, works for B2B as well. People just like this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's amazing. What are you guys trying to tackle next? Like what's the next thing? Because you guys, you're doing really well. You're a very, very popular marketer. You know your shit.
Thanks.
Like this is why I have you on the show. Let's just completely side note, Eric, like now that I got you, like what are your goals as a marketer and as a person, like career wise or financially? Like what's your end thing?
I think you and I think we're fortunate enough to be at a point where it's kind of like house money. Like we probably have more than we ever dreamed that we would have.
Yeah.
So that's a very good position to be in, right? So after that, it's kind of like, okay, so how do I help the world even more? So, my whole thing, and this is something I've been working on for a while, and it's taken couple years, but I have a book coming out called Leveling Up, which is why my podcast has been renamed to Leveling Up from Growth Everywhere. But it's literally about, how can I help not just, a certain number of human beings, but how can I help every single human being in the world level up, right? Yeah. Whether that's through personal or kind of professional. Now I set the number that high because I want my goal to be unrealistic, so I can, shoot for the moon or shoot for the stars, land on the moon, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's amazing, man. Well, mine's just about planting trees right now. So I need to level mine up quite a bit compared to yours. Like that is a much better goal.
Dude, just make it, I love that goal. Just make it much bigger. I don't know how many you want to plant, but maybe make it way bigger.
Yeah.
Dude.
You're awesome, man. I really appreciate you being on the show. The people that are listening, I hope you guys got a tease of what knowledge drop could come in the future too if we have you back on the show, Eric. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Talk soon.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. I have my good friend, Pedro Clavati. He is the head of growth over at Growth Hackers. And we're going to be talking about marketing experiments today. How are you, Pedro?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Of course, man. Super pumped. Somebody who lives and sees everything that the Growth Hackers community has to share, plus gets to work on so many fun and exciting things. I want the people here listening to understand, the foundation of marketing experiments. Now, we could call this growth hacking, and I'm completely okay using the term interchangeably. You might have some different thoughts, but when it comes to marketing experiments, can you tell how your mindset approaches that for the listeners?
Sure. Yeah. So there's a lot of buzz around, should that be called growth hacking, growth marketing experiments? But I believe it all comes down to the same thing of actually running experiments all around, figuring things out before actually going all in, right? So regardless of how you name it, I believe it all comes down to the framework of coming up with new ideas, testing them out, and validating before rolling that out.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty much like, I don't think there's much difference between there's difference between the name, but the framework it's the same.
Perfect. That makes sense. That's what I was thinking about too. We may have to change our episodes because we also have a growth hacking episode that we planned on launching, but we might change that now. Who knows? So let's say that you approach, I mean, you do marketing experiments and growth marketing for growth hackers. Is that correct to assume?
Yeah, that's correct. So we do have a marketing team and a growth team. And the main difference between both of them is our marketing team is focused on the acquisition part of our funnel, right? So they are always making change. They also run experiments themselves. Yeah. They have their own operation, so their daily routine, etc. But it's always connected with attracting visitors, with converting visitors to lead. That's the part of the customer journey they're responsible for. And what differs them from the growth team is precisely because the growth team has the ability or the flexibility to apply their knowledge, their experience and their knowledge across any department of the company, right? So that's why we talk a lot about breaking silos. It doesn't belong to one department or another. It varies. Like, where's the biggest bottleneck in the company right now? That's where growth team should be acting upon. Regardless if it's acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral, or any other growth lever that you might have.
Got it. That makes sense. So now that you define it that way, I can think of myself as a one-man head of growth at our agency, Client Boost, because I just finished some proposal stuff that was a bottleneck. So that's awesome. That's cool to hear. Now, if we talk about...
it's similar in that... Go ahead.
I was going to say, if we talk about, marketing experiments and focus in on that for you, can you kind of help us when you either do it at Growth Hackers or let's say you did it at a previous company or one of your clients, for example, how do you decide on what to prioritize? Like, where does that initial research start?
Awesome. So we basically have we have a 3-layer cadence of KPI that we are always looking at, right? So the main, the broadest one, we used to call that North Star metric. Some people define it as the one single metric that matters, the one metric that matters. There's a lot of different names to it, but it's the one metric that actually, regardless of the department that we are talking about, if it's marketing, sales, if it's product, if it's technology, customer service, whatever the department is, if they're all doing well, that's the metric that we are improving, right? So it's always connected with both the growth of the company in terms of revenue, but also the value that you are trying to provide. Okay. And the reason why we have this metric is precisely because of what we mentioned earlier, right? You need something that gives you flexibility to run across departments. Yeah. So the North Star metric should be something that it englobes them all, right? Okay. And right below the North Star metric, we got our focus for the time being, right? Okay. So let's say that one real example here. One of Uber North Star metric is actually rides completed. Okay. So if you complete a ride on Uber, that means that the rider is getting value, that the person who is actually riding is also getting value, and Uber is making money, right? So all of the stakeholders involved are getting value out of it. Okay. So that would be an North Star metric. Okay. The objectives or the focus that of what you're going to be doing over the course of the year could be something like improve the onboarding experience. Mm-hmm. Let's increase the number of drivers that we have. Let's increase the number of riders that we have. So those are the major objectives. And
so the lowest second thing, sorry, Pedro, real quick, because I didn't hear you the first time. You said this.
The task that you are.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry, I was asking the second thing.
I can hear you perfectly. Yeah.
So the first thing with the North Star metric. The second thing were the objectives. Is that correct?
So the second thing is the objective, while the third and the lowest level of this cadence of API are the tasks, the experiments, the ideas of things that you're going to be running. Okay. Right? So ideally, those ideas are coming everywhere. following the methodology, strictly following the methodology, we would give everyone in the company a voice. We would all a chance to step up and suggest a growth idea. The growth team is still responsible for choosing why they're going to grow. Everyone in the company can pick up and suggest a growth idea. We're giving everyone a voice.
Everybody's part of the team. Yeah.
Those are like the ideas, the experiments that you're going to be running, right? So just a quick recap. We've got the North Star metric, like representing all departments, everything that we are doing, the value that you try to provide. Secondly, we got objectives, so your macro focus for the time being. And last but not least, we got the ideas, the experiments that you're actually going to be running.
Okay.
And to pick like which experiments you're actually going to be running, we personally use the ICE score.
Yeah.
So that stands for impact, confidence, and easy. So every single idea that is suggested to our backlog, they are classified among those three criteria. Important, confidence, and easy.
Okay.
So we, like the resources that we have, the time that we have available, and the urgency of actually delivering results. Yeah. We prioritize according to them.
Awesome. So to recap, so sometimes like the connection might not be that great. We have number one is your North Star metric as a company. The second thing are the objectives, or what's included to be able to influence that North Star metric. And then third are the ideas to actually be part of those objectives. The ideas are split up in three categories known as the ICE framework, right? So you said, what was the first one? Impact?
Correct.
And the C was what?
Yeah, impact, confidence. So how confident that you are that this idea is actually gonna reach the hypothesis. Yep. And then easy. So how many people would you need to actually run that experiment, or how much money do you need? So it's pretty much like how much resources that you're going to require to run that experiment.
Got it. So you have impact, confidence, and then ease, like how the resources you basically mentioned. Like, and is that scored? Are those things scored on a 1 to 10 basis or a 1 to 5? How do you score those?
So each of them, there is a score between 1 up to 10, right? A lot of people are looking at the average of score across those three criteria, but I would strongly recommend you to look at each criteria separately.
Okay.
So let me give you a real example. We are, let's say that you are in the beginning of the quarter, there's like a backlog full of ideas for you to run. Your product is available to you, so you might just filter them by the highest easy, or the ones that you are more confident that are going to work out. Yeah. Right? Instead of looking at the average, because the average might have like one idea has a 1 point score on confidence and 10 on easy, and another idea has a 1 on easy and 10 on confidence. They are going to have the same average score.
Yeah.
But if you look at each criteria, it gives you a different perspective.
Right.
So
makes sense.
Let's say that we are in the end of the quarter. Like the product team is focused on a new launch. They're launching a new feature. Everyone is looking at that. So you don't have much money. You don't have much resources. You don't have much time. So start all of your idea backlog based on the highest easy, or the easiest ones for you to implement. That gives you a better perspective of like which ideas you should be running now.
That makes a ton of sense. So cool. So basically, for people listening, you were saying that like if something has a higher confidence score than an ease score, obviously considering your resources and what you have available, depending on the time of year, you might decide to prioritize things differently, considering outside circumstances beyond the ICE score that you have, like the average, which is really, really smart to think about that way. So Pedro, once you have these ideas figured out, what are some of the common challenges that may happen when you actually roll with that and everything else is defined? Is there anything that happens?
So a few challenges that I see like growth teams actually having is like, I believe like the most common ones is not having total support from the higher up, right?
Got it.
So the basis of a growth team is actually to run experiments on things that have never been done before.
Okay.
So based on that, it's likely that most of those experiments are not going to work out. Right? You have like the growth team needs to have a tolerance higher than any other department.
Yeah.
Some successful growth teams that work with us, they have up to 70% of their experiments actually don't play out as they were expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, because the 30% that actually plays out well pays off for all of the rest.
Right.
But for them to keep failing over time, they need to have an acceptance from the higher ups, from their VPs, and understanding from the rest of the companies that the growth team is going to fail, because they are going to be taking higher risks than any other department.
Yep.
But once they actually reach the target, it pays off for all of the rest. So one really common struggle that I see growth teams facing is precisely this understanding from the C level and directors that the growth team is indeed a department that is taking a lot more risks than any other department.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay.
It's funny.
I feel like that's, yeah.
I was going to say, it's funny you say that. There's this comic strip that's really famous for a lot of marketers and business people in general. It's called the Marketunist, I think. And it was funny, literally to the point of what you were saying. There was this one frame where the boss was saying to his people, we need to do something so innovative that it's going to crush all our goals. And we're going to be the best company in our industry. And then the second one, when the actual team presents it to him, which is, I'm assuming, the boss, the CEO, he's like, this seems risky. Can you show me examples of other companies who have done this too and succeeded? And so it's to your point, you need the buy-in of the CEO or the C-suite people, because otherwise you're going to keep having issues.
Exactly. And I think on last year, on Amazon shareholder letter, Jeff Bezos mentioned something really similar. Most of the companies are willing to want to innovate, but they don't. They are not willing to actually accept the fact that for you to innovate, you're gonna fail a lot.
Right.
So you just want the upside, but you're not up for the downside.
Yeah.
So I think that's the most common challenge that I see growth teams facing.
Okay. So we have the lack of buy-in and understanding from C-suite. Is there anything in regards to ownership of task or the execution of these experiments that become an issue that you've seen?
So normally, when growth teams are kicking out, they're just starting out, they don't start out with all of the resources that they will eventually need.
Yeah.
So they usually kick things off with what we call a mixed structure team, where there is one person responsible for building up the growth strategy and prioritizing ideas, choosing what goes into production or not.
Yeah.
But when the time comes for actually executing those tasks, they need resources from other areas, right? So they communicate with the product team or the marketing team or the sales team to actually execute those experiments.
Yeah.
And that's pretty common. But once they start to bring results and the growth team starts to evolve, then they usually go into an independent structure, right? Where you have someone on a VP of growth who has his own team, and the skill set that they normally have on their the growth team is someone who is who has a skill set on that data science, a marketeer, a developer or a programmer, and a designer or a UI or UX specialist. So that's the perfect game, right?
Yeah.
All those skill sets are available for one person to allocate. So I think one other struggle that I could mention is when they don't have this understanding from other areas or from other directors. It also it becomes harder for them to actually execute those experiments if they don't have the buy-in from other areas. And when we think about that on a startup reality, it's pretty easy for us to figure that out, right? We are usually if it's a small startup, we are all seated on the same room. or on the same floor at least.
Yeah.
Right. So you know who's working on the product team, and you know who's working on the marketing team. It's pretty easy to run after them.
Right.
But when we think about that on scale, then sometimes they might be in a completely different building, or in a completely different city, or in a completely different state, and someone from the marketing team might have never actually met someone from the product team.
Right.
So those gaps between areas actually the flow of information between areas just don't exist.
Right.
Each department are living inside their own world. And it becomes pretty hard to actually just reiterate something that you have learned.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much when we talk about breaking silos between teams, that's one of the responsibilities of a growth team. It's actually to being able to run across departments and not it doesn't belong to any specific area. So that allows you to have perspective from everyone, and the flow of information from the product team to the marketing team to the sales team actually happens in a small way.
That makes a ton of sense, and obviously see the main benefit. I had a question for you, because thinking of the tolerance of risk from higher ups, if you're trying to run marketing experiments, or even, focusing on growth for your company, is there a certain time limit that you have on experiments? Because let's say an experiment could take 6 months, but if you spent all the resources within your organization and it doesn't work out, that's going to hurt more than an experiment that was a lot shorter. Do you have any rules of thumb for that?
So that's a good question. Now, let me answer that in 2 parts.
Yeah.
So one is the reason why we have a cadence of three layers of KPI.
Yeah.
It's precisely because as a company, everyone is going to be looking at either your objective or your North Star metric.
Okay.
Right? So we are never, the rest of the company will never be looking at, if you're actually improving the conversion rate of your landing page.
Right.
They're going to be looking at the bottom line. So how many leads have you delivered? Mm-hmm. So the expectation of the rest of the company, it's not connected with the experiment itself, but with the impact that experiment it's bringing to the company.
Yeah.
So that's a really common pitfall of growth teams. I love to talk about the improvement of the conversion rate that I did on that landing page, or how I decreased the cost of acquisition through an experiment on a paid media acquisition channel.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, what the company actually cares about is the bottom line. It's the whole number. It's not the conversion rate improvement, right?
Right.
So that's why we have objectives. That's why we have layers of KPIs. So we are not looking at the experiment itself, but the impact of that experiment is bringing to the whole company.
Got it.
That's the first point. Second point is Sean talks a lot about that. So he always said that growth hacking is about high tempo tasks and on a small scale. So what does that actually mean, right? We recommend companies should be running experiments for as long as 2 weeks.
As long as, max 2 weeks?
Max 2 weeks,
max
correct.
2 weeks, okay.
And the reason behind that is, if something is alive for, so if you have an experiment that needs to be, live for, 6 months, try to break that up, into small experiments instead of letting one experiment alive for 6 months.
That makes sense.
That allows you to decrease the influence of external factors in the output of your experiment.
Yeah.
So if they're alive for 2 weeks, maybe some political instability is gonna affect your bottom line, but overall, at least you decrease the influence of external factors, right?
Yeah.
And we also talk a lot about small scale. So let's say that you're running you're an e-commerce and you are changing I want to improve the checkout experience. Mm-hmm. So instead of running an experiment for 100% of the users that go into that page, just run for 10 or 20% of that amount. If things work out, then you can bring that number and say, hey, I have found a way to actually improve the conversion rate 50%.
Right.
And if we scale that up, that means X% improvement on the bottom line or the number of checkouts.
Right.
But if it doesn't work out well, your experiment, then you don't need to roll that up into a larger scale. So you're minimizing the downside while maximizing the upside if things work out.
Yeah, that makes it so clear and simple too. Anything that I'm not asked, because I know we're coming up here on time, anything that I should be asking you that I haven't asked you yet?
I don't think so. I think that we have covered a lot. Yeah.
It was a super well put together. Oh, go ahead.
If I would say one thing is a lot of things tend to look at growth hacking only from the hacking perspective, right? So for some, that brings like a negative connotation, and people tend to look at that blog post like how I increase my traffic in 3 days, 1,000% my traffic in 3 days doing X or doing Y.
Right.
I'm not saying that this doesn't work. I'm saying that this is not growth hacking. So growth hacking or marketing experiments or growth marketing, whatever you want to call it, it's actually the process of constant experimentation.
Yeah.
Constant and thoughtful experimentation, right? So although we always read about that single case that changed a startup life, that didn't come out from one single experiment. They probably had hundreds of experiments that went wrong before finding that.
Right.
So it's more about like constant small improvements that when you sum that up together, they make a huge difference than like one silver bullet that is gonna change all of our lives.
I agree. No, Pedro, this is so cool. Thank you for giving us a foundation. I am actually thought that I knew about growth marketing and marketing experiments and even growth hacking in general. I met with Sean Ellis many times in person. I didn't know it as clearly as you just explained it, so I'm super thankful. I'll let him know that he sucks.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm just kidding. but I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.